There once was a young African man who went to live in the forest. This man was tired of living in town. He wanted to go and live in the quiet of the forest where there were no people, only trees and animals. And so he packed his bags, he left town, and he went to live in the forest. After some time, he started hearing strange sounds in the forest. He heard the sound of footsteps following him around. He stopped and listened intently. Then he turned around and asked the young man, "Can you hear that?" The young man replied, "What do you mean?" "What is it?" The young man nodded his head. "Yes, ma'am, I want to know whose footsteps these are that follow me around in the forest." The woman then asked the young man to close his eyes and put his hands on the ground. He gave the young man some gifts and told him to give them to the elders of the forest. The old man then walked the young man to the edge of the forest and waved goodbye to him. The young man took the gifts and left the forest to go back to the village. The young man did as he was told. The woman then started moving her hands on the ground like she was digging something out. After some time, she said, "Open your eyes now." The young man opened his eyes and saw imprints of human hands on the ground. The woman then said, "These are the handprints of the owner of the footsteps. Look carefully and try to remember them." The young man looked at the handprints on the ground and committed them to memory. And the chief said, "Can you hear that?" "That is the sound of your footsteps." He walked and walked until he saw the same footprints again. He followed the footprints and soon came to a river. On the other side of the river, he saw a hut and smoke coming out of its chimney. As he approached the hut, he saw the same old man who had gone to investigate the footsteps. The young man greeted the old man and explained to him why he had come. The old man smiled and said, "So you found my hut, son. Come, let's go inside." The old man served the young man some food and drink. Then the young man asked, "May I ask you something?" "Of course, son. Ask away," said the old man. The young man then asked, "Are you the one whose footsteps I've been hearing in the forest?" The old man replied, "Whose footsteps?" The young man said, "These ones," and he made the shape of the old man's footsteps on the ground. The old man looked at the shape and said, "Ah, yes, these are my footsteps. But how did you know they belonged to me?" The young man explained to the old man how he had come to be in the forest and how he had met the elders of the forest who had helped him to find the footprints. The young man was confused. He said, "I thought you could not hear it." The chief then explained that everyone has their own unique footsteps and that the young man must have stepped on a leaf or twig that made the noise. He then told the young man to listen to his footsteps and to try and imitate them. Every time he would turn around, he would see nothing. So he decided to go and report this to the chief of the forest. He went to the chief's palace and explained to him what was happening. The chief was a very wise man. When he heard what the young man had said, he told him to go and sit on a nearby stone while he went to investigate. He tried to make out where they were coming from, but all in vain. After some time, he stood up and started walking. He walked for a bit, then stopped and listened. To his surprise, he heard the sound of his own footsteps. He walked on and soon came to a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a huge baobab tree with lots of people sitting under its shade. The young man was surprised to see so many people in the middle of the forest. He greeted them and they all responded, "Welcome, son. We've been expecting you." The young man was even more surprised. He asked, "Expecting me? How?" One of the old men under the tree said, "We are the elders of the forest. We have been watching you since you came to live here. We saw you were troubled by something, and so we called you here." The young man explained to them what was happening. The chief had walked only a few steps outside his palace when he heard the same footsteps following him. The young man went back into the forest and sat down on the ground to listen to the footsteps that were following him. Then one of the women said, "So you want us to help you? Is that it?" The next morning, the young man woke up early and went to the forest to look for the owner of the footprints. The old man then told the young man to go back to the village and live with his people.